One of history's most famous, scandalous, and shocking conflicts was the Hamilton-Burr dispute. This conflict between two prestigious men was a dramatic and violent one and ended quite abruptly. Before we get started, let's go back nearly 50 years before the duel and learn a little bit about the lives of each individual. Alexander Hamilton was born in 1757 on Nevis Island in the British West Indies. When he was only 11 years old, he was orphaned and adulthood was thrust upon him. As a worker, he dreamed of becoming a successful and famous soldier. He left his workplace of St. Croix in 1772 to attend college in the American colonies. The explosion of the American Revolution gave Hamilton the opportunity to achieve his dream and be a soldier. He left college early and became a lieutenant colonel in the Continental Army a year after. After this, he went on to become the assistant and advisor for General George Washington. After the Revolution, Hamilton went on to study and become a lawyer in New York. Very similar to Alexander Hamilton, Aaron Burr was born just a year before him in 1956 in New Jersey. Like Hamilton, Burr also orphaned at a young age and lived with his uncle. He began studying law after graduating from Princeton University, but studying was put on hold when he joined the Continental Army at the outbreak of the Revolution. Sound familiar? In 1779, Burr resigned from the Army and resumed his law studies in Albany. In doing so, for the first time, Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr met, both of which were veteran soldiers trying to become lawyers. After receiving their license, both men coincidentally went to New York to begin their practice. On occasion, they would come into contact with each other, and 5 years later, each of them found themselves one of the most popular lawyers in New York City. As time went on, the two of them were thrown into the world of politics. Hamilton was a representative at the Continental Congress, and he tried to push the idea of strong central government and loose interpretation of the Constitution. He played a huge role in the ratification of the new plan of government through his contribution to the Federalist Papers. Hamilton was appointed as the first Secretary of Treasury and later developed a national bank plan. Aaron Burr, who started his political career in the 1790s, had a conflict with Hamilton's plan for a national bank. He was not alone in feeling this. Thomas Jefferson and James Madison disagreed with it as well. This conflict resulted in the nation's first political party, the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists, or Democratic Republicans. As the election of the 1800s came nearer, the bitterness between the two became greater. The candidates for the election were Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr in the Democratic Republican Party, and John Adams, Charles Pinckney, and John James for the Federalist Party. Back then, the voting system was a little different. Electoral college members were only able to vote for the president along with two different candidates. The candidates with the first and second amount of votes would then become president and vice president. The Democratic and Republican plan was to have one member of the Electoral College vote for only Jefferson so that he would become president and Aaron Burr would become vice president. This did not go as planned, as both Jefferson and Burr came out on top with the same number of votes. The decision of who would become president was passed on to the House of Representatives. The House, dominated by Federalists, voted nearly 36 times, and the result always ended in a tie. This is where Hamilton decided to step in, promoting Jefferson over Burr. Hamilton did dislike both men, but he especially hated Burr. Hamilton went on to tell members of the House about Burr's awful, despicable character, stating that he was, quote, one of the most unpredictable men in the United States. Hamilton was able to sway the vote of one member in the House, resulting in Jefferson becoming the third president of the United States. Unfortunately, this did not put a stop to the continuously growing conflict between Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr. In 1804, the conflict between Hamilton and Burr became greater than ever. Burr was running for New York governor in February, but lost, which he blamed partially on Hamilton, who attempted to convince many people not to vote for Burr. After exchanging a number of bitter letters back and forth, Aaron Burr challenged Hamilton to a duel. Hamilton was opposed to dueling, partly because of the fact that his son had died in a duel only 3 years earlier, but Hamilton knew if he had declined, he would be viewed as a coward and his career would be over, so he accepted the challenge. On the morning of July 11, 1804, the two met on the Nehocken, New Jersey dueling grounds, which was the same place that Hamilton's son had been killed. Burr arrived first, followed by Hamilton, which was what was previously arranged. Once there, they took necessary actions like loading pistols and laying down the rules. The men stood 10 paces away from each other and gave a signal. Hamilton fired first, but his shot hit an overhead tree branch. It has been said that this was his plan, but theory has never been confirmed. Burr fired second. The bullet hit Hamilton, piercing his liver. Burr immediately rushed towards Hamilton, speechless, but was coaxed away by a friend. The doctor there, Dr. Hosack, rushed to his side. Hamilton said to the doctor, "This is a mortal wound," and fainted. Hamilton was taken to a house in New York where he regained consciousness, and his wife and children waited with him while his end drew near. He died the next day at 2 o'clock. Because of the duel, Burr's political career in the United States was clearly over, and people all over grieved of the loss of one of their founding fathers, Alexander Hamilton. Burr then set his sights on the Louisiana Territory. Burr tried teaming up with General Wilkinson and creating a new empire and being the ruler, but this plan failed miserably when the news spread to the people. Wilkinson tried saving himself and told President Jefferson of the plan. In December 1806, Burr was arrested and put on trial for treason, but the Supreme Court Justice John Marshall ruled him not guilty. Though he won, he soon became a hated man throughout the United States, so he fled to Europe to work on plots similar to his first. He returned to the United States just before the War of 1812 and once again opened up practice as a lawyer, where he lived low-key for the remainder of his life. The Hamilton-Burr dispute was a conflict between two men so great the only solution was a tragic one. There have been other disputes similar between other political leaders, though none ended with such a shock. One of the most recent controversial political disputes was the 2000 presidential election. In the election, Al Gore won the popular vote, while Bush won the majority of electoral college votes. This created a huge conflict and resulted in many court battles over recounts. These events will not be the last of the controversial conflicts between political leaders, and something needs to be done. History will continue forever, just as the legacy of the Hamilton-Burr dispute has.